Hi, and welcome to The Regulated Mother. I'm your host, Afshan Tafler, nervous system resilience coach and mother of a hypersensitive, high-needs child. If you're raising a differently wired kid with PDA, autism, OCD, ADHD, or big emotional needs, this is a space for you. Here we talk about what most people don't, how it really feels, how your nervous system responds, and how to find your way back to calm, courage, and connection, even on the hardest days. You're not alone. Let's begin. Can I really heal while living in an environment that feels traumatic? Can I really heal when I'm being triggered daily, when I feel like I'm drowning in stress, and when life with my child feels overwhelming and chaotic? This is the question I hear over and over again from parents. And honestly, it's the question I've asked myself countless times too. Because when you're in the thick of constant meltdowns, refusals, rages, and chaos, healing can feel like an impossible dream. So today I want to unpack this question with you. I'll share a very real story from my own life, and together we'll look at what healing your nervous system really means. You'll learn why healing isn't about never getting triggered, why your past experiences shape how you feel traumatized by the current experience, okay? And what it actually looks like to grow and change, even in the middle of the mess. My hope is that by the end, you'll walk away with a definition of healing that feels compassionate and realistic and possible, so that you can see that healing is already happening for you right here, right now. So we were back here again. My son was in a panic and he started to bang the kitchen cupboard doors. Bang, bang, bang. I flinched and my body was bracing. I tried to remain calm and I started to walk away a little to give him some space while still staying close. I noticed my activation building inside of me. I tried to ground myself, feeling my feet on the floor, putting my hand on my chest, sensing the warmth and comfort of my hand. I was containing this activation and really trying to stay steady. But all of a sudden, he pulled back the fridge door and he slammed it against the counter, leaving dents in the door. He then banged the fridge door shut so hard that all the bottles clashed together and glass shattered everywhere. And in that moment, my activation shot way up. I looked at the broken glass and the mess spilling onto the floor and all over the kitchen, all over the fridge that I would have to clean up. And I felt myself drop into despair, followed by a sudden surge of rage. I could no longer contain myself. I yelled at my son. I told him, I don't want to live like this anymore. I threatened to send him to a hospital if he kept doing this. And then I stopped. I realized what I had just done, and shame flooded me. I collapsed into despair, crying while trying to clean up the mess. After things had calmed down, I sat in a pile of shame and hopelessness. My thoughts spiraled. When am I ever going to change? Why can't I change? Why did I have to threaten him again? Why can't I feel safe when he bangs and breaks glass? Why? I was deep in a shame spiral, feeling like failure yet again. What's the point of all this? I thought. I'm never going to heal, and the situation is never going to change. I dropped into dorsal shutdown. I wanted to disappear and to exit this life. This was my reality over and over again, trying so hard to heal and contain my reaction, but then when something extreme happened, not being able to hold it together any longer, and unleashing anger and rage and threats onto my child as a last-ditch effort to get him to stop. I couldn't shake this pattern, no matter how hard I tried. What I wanted more than anything was to stay calm when my son was activated. I wanted to not care if he broke things, to just be okay with it all. But when the intensity escalated, and when it escalated for long periods of time, I couldn't seem to hold steady. And it wasn't until I began to deeply examine what I thought healing meant that I realized I had been setting myself up for failure all along. No wonder I was feeling like I was failing. So, the big question I hear from parents again and again is this: can you actually heal while living in an environment or situation that feels traumatic? The short answer is yes, you can heal. But there's also a longer answer because many of us, and myself included, hold a definition of healing that keeps us feeling like failures. Okay, so many of us imagine that healing means arriving at a destination where we are no longer triggered, where we can remain calm and relaxed no matter what challenges arise with our children. We imagine that our regulated presence will immediately and automatically regulate our child, helping them to function better, to comply, and to meet expectations. This is the dream, the perfect scenario, the vision that so many mothers hold. But when we step onto the path of trying to become a more regulated parent, we discover how impossibly hard it is to stay calm in the face of extreme behavior. Our survival systems are what often bring us to this path, okay? We're so desperate for relief, so desperate to stop feeling the constant pain and suffering, desperate for change in our children. Many of us arrive to this place really after realizing that we can't control our kids. We try, but we can't. And so we research endlessly and we learn about the accommodation approach and all these new approaches that to create safety for our child's nervous system. But even then, our own nervous system is often still stuck in survival mode. We are still trying to control just from a different angle now. Quietly desperate. If I can only change myself, then my child will get better and I can feel like I'm a good enough mom. But that dream rarely comes to fruition. Why? Because it's built on a false notion of what a good parent looks like. It's based on perfectionism, on survival, and on the desperate need to finally feel enough. So at this point, you may be asking, but isn't healing actually about being calm and in control? And the answer is both yes and no. Yes, being regulated often does look like calm, but no, healing doesn't mean that you're staying calm all the time. There is nuance here, and healing is not a final destination, okay, where you stop getting triggered. Healing is a process of learning to respond differently when you are triggered, and it is about gradually changing your patterns over time. So, the first step in redefining healing is to really understand why your situation may feel traumatic. So, when you live with a child who refuses many demands, even ones tied to their basic needs like eating, sleeping, toileting, and hygiene, your nervous system is constantly stretched beyond its capacity. Okay, so when meltdowns and rages or refusals are chronic and they're happening all the time, the situation can begin to feel like this is inescapable. And trauma encodes when life feels inescapable. Okay, that's the clincher for encoding trauma. So trauma gets encoded when we feel trapped, powerless, or helpless. Okay, when we feel like we have no choices, that we cannot fight or flee this situation so we drop into freeze or shut down, or that we feel unsupported, isolated, and alone. When something stressful has happened, then you can encode trauma. Or we feel like we don't have the energy or capacity to cope. Okay, so energy reserves really do matter. And when they run low, the body shifts into shutdown more easily to conserve energy. Okay, and then trauma can encode more easily or it can deepen more easily. Trauma can encode when life feels like too much, too fast. So, the sudden rages or meltdowns happening over and over again, too much, too fast. Or it can encode when it feels like it's too little for too long. Okay. So, this ongoing lack of support that we feel, the lack of our basic needs being met, okay, that's too little for too long. And so for those of you parenting PDA children who no longer attend school, especially, and you're with them all the time, and your child is cycling in and out of burnout, and you're cycling in and out of burnout, you know this reality very well, okay? And you may feel all of the above on a daily basis. And yet the most important thing to understand about trauma is that feelings the feelings that you experience now actually don't originate only in the present. Okay, when you are triggered, the patterns that come alive within you are actually rooted in the past. And so, as neuroscientist Antonio Damasio showed, 90% of what gets triggered in the present actually comes from the past, and only 10% has to do with what's happening right now. So just take a moment to take that in, because feeling trapped, helpless, unsupported, hopeless, all of those feelings actually existed before your child. Your child just ends up triggering them within you and then compounds and intensifies them. So this means that the ultimate work of healing is not about changing your child or stopping their behaviors. The work is about bringing awareness to what's being triggered inside of you and tracing it back to its origins and giving yourself a new experience of safety in the present. And when you do this, then the present becomes far more bearable because you are no longer carrying the entire weight of the past into it. So this isn't easy work, but it is what creates the difference between feeling traumatized and simply feeling stressed. Stress is inevitable and it's a part of life. But if you could prevent yourself from feeling re-traumatized over and over again, then you are already making profound progress. Okay, so I feel like that's really important to understand about why we feel traumatized in the present. Now, here's another reality, okay? When I sought therapy, I heard the same message repeatedly. And I've heard clients tell me this as well, okay? That the therapists that they work with would say that healing requires time, space, and support. And yes, there's truth to that. And healing requires safety. And yes, there's truth to that. And it can be very hard to heal if you are still living in chaos. There's some truth to that too, okay? But this was really discouraging for me to hear, okay? So I was once in this internal family systems therapy training, and I remember, the teacher, the instructor saying that it's not advisable to do deeper trauma healing work with children who are still living in abusive homes because it would be too hard for them to open up their vulnerability. So their protective systems needed to stay in place until the threat, which was their abusive parents, were no longer abusing them. So the environment shifted and changed, right? And this was really disheartening for me to hear, because then I often wondered, like, does this mean that I can't heal if I'm living in an environment that, that is a violent child who, threatens my nervous system so much? So I sought out many therapists trying to find someone who would give me a different answer, okay? And I would receive a lot of validation for my situation, but rarely confidence that I could heal while still living in the thick of it. And I often felt like giving up, but something in me, my soul, okay, didn't let me give up. And so here are two things that I want to name here. First, this situation that we're in as the parent is not the same as being a child who is still being traumatized. Okay, as parents, we are the adults now. And even when our protective parts are triggered, we still hold more choice and power than we realize. Okay. And recognizing this helps us reclaim some sense of agency. And second, from a soul perspective, because I believe that we are a soul living in this human body, I believe that, we choose our life challenges from a soul perspective, and we know that we can grow through them. And so this belief really gave me the perseverance, even when things felt impossible. So it took me 4 years, okay, 4 years to reach the trauma from the abuse and near-death experience I had at age 1. And for a long time, I didn't even know it was there. No one in my family knew either. But the intensity of my survival reactions towards my son told me that something had to be there. Something happened. So I used somatic tools for years to calm my nervous system until that trauma felt safe enough to surface. So yes, it takes longer when you're under chronic daily stress. And it's like trying to turn, like the nervous system is like trying to turn the Titanic around, okay? But it is possible. With patience, with tools, with compassion, you can learn to create safety even in the hardest environments. So here's what healing really means, okay? And I'm going to go through all of them. So hang in there with me because this is a long list, but I think it's really important to understand all the different ways that healing shows up. So here are all the meanings and signs of what healing really means when living with a child who may continue to have challenges for years to come, okay? So first, healing is not a destination. Healing does not mean you will one day arrive at a place where you are calm all the time, where everything gets better for your child and where life suddenly becomes easy. So holding on to this dream will always leave you feeling like you're failing. Okay, the path forward is not about reaching a final healed state. It's about walking the journey. Okay. Second, healing is not about it's not about not getting triggered. Okay. Healing is not about not getting triggered. As long as you are human, you will get triggered. Healing is about how you show up when you are triggered and how you respond differently than you did in the past. And yes, over time, you will likely get triggered less often, especially by the smaller things. But it's unrealistic to expect that you won't be triggered at all, especially if your child is physically attacking you, threatening a sibling, or destroying your home. Those are real survival level events, and it's natural for your nervous system to react. Third, healing is awareness. Okay, so simply becoming aware of how your brain and body react is already a huge part of healing. So even if you can't stop that extreme survival reaction yet, the fact that you can observe it with some curiosity instead of being completely lost in it is healing in itself. And then healing is not about staying calm all the time. Your nervous system will automatically activate and shut down at times, often without your conscious control. Healing doesn't mean eliminating these states. It means becoming aware of them and learning to help your nervous system feel safe and contained enough to take action that's most needed. Okay, so sometimes that action is to pause and do nothing. Other times it's to intervene more strongly to create safety. And what matters is that your action becomes more and more contained over time with more of your ventral vagal energy available, right? Your higher thinking brain stays online. And as you continue to heal your old trauma, your activation will gradually become less extreme and easier to manage. So healing is about not staying stuck in survival for long, okay? So you will still have ups and downs, so moments of fight, flight, freeze, or shutdown. The difference is that you don't stay stuck in them. You don't stay stuck on and sympathetic for days on end, and you don't remain collapsed and off for long stretches of time either, okay? Healing means that you you get stuck less and less. Okay. It means that you can ride the waves of activation, of going up and coming down. You ride those activations and you can come back to home to yourself, come back again and again. Okay. Then healing is about being okay with the messiness of it all. So life will still be hard and messy. And healing means developing more capacity to handle the challenges and becoming more accepting of the fact that your life may never look neat or conventional. Okay. It's about allowing what is, even when it's not what you wanted. So that's a sign of healing. Then healing is about holding on to or regaining your aliveness. And this comes from Dr. Peter Levine, who's the founder of somatic experiencing therapy. And he teaches that trauma buries our vitality and aliveness. And healing is about releasing that bound up survival energy so we can come back into contact with our authentic sense of vitality and creativity and life force. Okay, so it's about getting that aliveness and vitality back. And then healing is about becoming more authentic. So instead of automatically moving into fawn or appease modes to gain approval, people pleasing modes, you begin expressing more of who you truly are. You stop living for others' expectations and you feel more comfortable being yourself. And then healing can be about being able to have boundaries. So healing means being able to say no to people who don't support you or who drain you or who add more stress to your life. It also sometimes means setting firmer boundaries with your own child and choosing your needs first when you're at your capacity. Healing feels like you have more choices. So trauma encodes when we feel like we don't have choice. And healing empowers us with choices in moments where we used to feel trapped and hopeless. Okay. You start to see more clearly, you find perspective, and you feel like you can choose how to help yourself even in the hardest moments. So even choosing to walk away or take a breath can be an act of healing because it shifts you out of helplessness and into agency. Healing feels like you're becoming kinder and more compassionate with yourself. Okay, trauma often encodes when we are left alone with no support. And when those parts of you get triggered in the present, healing means bringing compassion and support to yourself instead of repeating the survival patterns of self-criticism and harshness. Healing means being able to stay in the present moment more and more. So instead of being hijacked by the past or worrying about the future, you learn to bring yourself back to what is happening right now. So presence itself is actually a form of healing. And healing means being able to notice the good things, even the small ones, the little glimmers, a moment of laughter, a kind gesture, a small piece of beauty. They begin to register more fully, right? This is also your aliveness coming back. You let them land in your nervous system instead of brushing them off. This is your brain moving towards out of negativity bias and being able to notice the good things more and more. Okay, then healing means being able to forgive and repair. So when you yell, when you collapse, when you react in ways that you don't like, healing means you can forgive yourself and repair with your child. You no longer live in endless shame spirals. And healing is surrendering and letting go of resistance. So you stop fighting reality so much. You begin to allow what is. You're trusting more and more that you can handle this life with all of its challenges, even if you don't like them. Then healing means that when we get triggered yet again, and it feels like we are repeating the same pattern, that it is really about the next layer coming up to be learned from this experience. So if we can reframe the experience from why is this happening again to what do I need to learn from this now? What is the next piece of learning that is coming forward? Then we are healing. So just being able to see this perspective. So instead of judging yourself for repeating the same pattern, you can see each cycle as another chance to grow into the next layer of awareness. And then healing feels like you're learning and growing from hard experiences. You begin to sense that your pain is not meaningless, but rather it is shaping you and deepening you and teaching you something valuable. And healing feels like you don't take things quite as seriously anymore. You find yourself laughing sometimes at the absurdity of it all. This lightness is a sign of nervous system flexibility and resilience. And healing feels like your reactions are becoming less extreme. You may notice that things that, which used to set you off into panic or rage or collapse no longer hit as hard. So this is a sign that your system is feeling safer overall. So I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that you need to feel all of these things to feel like you're healing. Okay. I mention all of these things because these are the things you will feel here and there, that give you signs that you're moving towards greater and greater healing. You do not need to feel these things all of the time, okay? Healing is a journey, it's not a destination. You may experience some of these sometimes and not others. You may experience a few and not all. And all of that is okay. This is your path. You are here to learn your own lessons and to walk your own unique journey. But I share that long list with you so you can recognize where you are healing versus only defining healing as being calm all the time. Okay. Now, I want to offer you the soul perspective as well, because, I look at everything from a mind, body, and soul perspective, very holistic. So, from the soul's perspective, the ultimate healing is self-realization. It's knowing deeply who you are beyond this conditioning and bringing that forth in your daily life. Okay. It's experiencing the felt sense that you are already whole and complete. You are already love and peace. Okay. You are not your survival system. So this doesn't mean that you'll be calm all the time, like especially when something dangerous is literally being thrown at your head. But it does mean that you can stay present to it all, allowing what is, and hold the deep knowing that your circumstances and this survival system of yours does not define who you are. You are not broken. You are not someone who needs to be fixed. You are someone who is learning to release the constraints of programming so that your true self can shine through. And that self, with a capital S, is unconditional love and wholeness and peace. So the invitation to you is to take a deeper look at what healing means to you. How does your survival system define it? Does it look like perfection? Does it look like you're going to be calm all the time, so that you finally feel good enough? What if healing could mean something else, something more compassionate, realistic, and human? So Carl Rogers once said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." So healing is not about becoming perfect. It is about meeting yourself with acceptance and compassion so that real change can unfold. And as Pema Chodron reminds us, nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. Okay, nothing ever goes away until it has taught us what we need to know. So healing is not about erasing your patterns. It is about learning from them layer by layer until your nervous system and your soul feel more free. So my invitation is this: to redefine healing, not as a destination, but as a living process, a process of awareness, of returning, forgiving, choosing, of allowing, a process of remembering your aliveness and your wholeness, even in the middle of the mess. Because the truth is, you are already healing right here, right now. And if this episode resonated with you, I ask you to please like or subscribe and share with others so that they can hear this messaging too. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to The Regulated Mother. If this episode helped you feel a little more seen, grounded, or hopeful, I'd love for you to share it with another mom who might need it too. And if you want more nervous system tools and support, head to my website, illuminateyou.ca, to grab my free ebook and video series. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing brave and meaningful work.